Washington Journal continues.
Our guest now is Sebastian Gorka, who is the former deputy assistant to the president and the national security advisor, a staff member during the Trump administration. Good morning. Welcome back.
Great to be here. Thanks, Paul.
Let's start overseas. Of course, pictures like these are all over the news. This from Saudi Arabia. You can see smoke pouring from the Aramco facility in Saudi Arabia after an attack on Saturday. The Houthi rebels claim responsibility, but the Secretary of State here, Mike Pompeo, sees it a little bit differently. He's pointing directly to Iran. If that's true, what should the response be?
Exactly what the president has been doing for nigh on 3 years. One of the key things that we did when I was in the White House is we ended the disastrous JCPOA Iran deal we'd inherited from the Obama administration, and then instigated a continuing sanctions package against Iran. The phrase we had when I was in the White House is behavior modification. Iran is one of the most dangerous nations in the world today, and it uses proxies like the Houthi to undermine the region.
What do you think about the idea of going further? Lindsey Graham, the senator from South Carolina, says the U.S. should consider an Iran attack that would break the regime's back, says the headline.
I don't agree with Lindsey. He is a little bit too keen to use military force. That seems to be his default reaction. We are seeing the mullahs desperate. They just said that they want to see a complete drop of sanctions. They will do certain measures in the oil industry as a result. They are feeling the squeeze. That economy is on the brink of collapse, Paul. So keep the pressure on. We don't need military action right now. Nothing is out of the question, but right now the sanctions are working.
We'll put the phone numbers on the bottom of the screen for Sebastian Gorka. And Democrats call 202-748-8000. Republicans 748-8001. Independents 202-748-8002. Social media, Facebook, Twitter. You want to send a text as well, 202-748-8003 is your number. Our guest, Sebastian Gorka, is also host at Salem Radio's America First program. You also have a book that's titled War for America's Soul. When exactly did this come out, and what's the book about?
It's about to come out.
It's about to come out.
It's available at Amazon.com. The War for America's Soul is published in 3 weeks.
Got it. Right. And what are you saying in the book?
It's a description of exactly what happened under the Obama administration to undermine the Trump campaign. So Crossfire, Hurricane, midterm exam, those illegal operations, those espionage operations. Then a description of what the left has done in the last 3 years with the Russia collusion hoax. It's a description of who Donald Trump is, what working for him was truly like, and the significance of the 2020 election. 2016 was historic. First time ever we elected a non-politician, a non-general to become commander-in-chief. My conviction is 2020 will be even more important than 2016.
Give us your thoughts on the departure of John Bolton. Here is a New York Post headline that says Trump, the president, and John Bolton clashed over Iran sanctions before the ouster. I guess there was a French plan to offer a credit line to Iran, which they disputed. What happened and what's the impact of his departure?
The impact will be minimal. The fact is Donald Trump has a foreign policy stance. His reaction always is non-intervention first, bring our boys and girls home. We've had General Flynn, we've had H.R. McMaster, now John Bolton. None of the departures or arrivals change the America First policy. John's a friend of mine. I think it's disgusting the way he was tarred with the brush of being a warmonger. He has served this nation proudly on numerous occasions in different posts. But there'll be a new security advisor, and we'll just move on.
Why has the president had 3 national security advisors in 3 years?
Yeah, you know how many Ronald Reagan had in the first 2? It's the same kind of thing. The idea that people stay in the White House for a long time, a year and a half is the average. I mean, if you serve a year and a half, it's like dog years. It's like serving 20 years in an administration. The Clinton White House basically collapsed in the 9th month of the first year and had to replace almost all the key members of the White House administration. These are tough jobs. And the president, as someone explained it to me, there are people who serve a purpose. Their time comes, they execute a mission, and then the president moves on. There's nothing untoward, and it's really how D.C. works.
Lots more to talk about with Sebastian Gorka, but let's get to calls. Victor, you're up first in Silver Spring, Maryland, on the Republican line. Hi, Victor.
Hi, good morning, Dr. Gorka.
Good morning, Victor. Victor's one of my callers. I recognize the voice. Hey, Victor.
Good to hear you on C-SPAN. One of the best things Donald Trump ever did for this country was to make us totally independent now. We don't have to worry about the Middle East anymore because we have our own oil and gas.
Right.
We're drilling for it. We're producing it. We don't have to put up with the watermelons that want to get us on wind power, which stops when the wind stops blowing, no electricity, as Trump points out. I love the way Rush Limbaugh makes fun of the environmental wackos. I call them watermelons, green on the outside, red on the inside. And during football season, I used to hear him do the environmental football picks, and they were a lot of fun to hear. And I won many a football pool because of his environmental wacko football picks.
Yeah, look, Victor, the fact is we are energy independent and energy exporters for the first time since the founding of our republic. And the absurdity, the asinine vision of having Democrat candidates in the debate this week say they're going to ban fracking, having Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez say we basically need to ban the internal combustion engine, no more flying with planes, just as we've come energy independent, shows you the disconnect between reality, which is the president's sphere, and the fantasies of these people who do believe in watermelons. You're absolutely right. These plans like the Green New Scam, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's Green New Scam, are only green on the inside. It's only green as much as the rind. Inside, it's deep, deep socialist red.
You mentioned Congress. The president is supposed to send to the Hill some type of gun legislation this week. What are you anticipating, and where are you on the gun issue? What would you accept in terms of new law?
Well, I'm a huge Second Amendment advocate. On my show, America First, we actually dedicate a whole hour to the Second Amendment every week. I have concerns because there is a pattern in all the recent shootings. There is a pattern of young men who don't live normal lives and then suddenly one day kill a dozen people. They have patterns in their lives in which they run into trouble with the law, with school administrations. In the Parkland shooting, I had the father of one of the Parkland victims on my show. That killer had 41 negative interactions with law enforcement with no consequences. When you have one of the recent killers known in high school to be in possession of a rape and kill list and nothing happens, I don't want to see more legislation because you cannot legislate against psychosis. What we need is local authorities to do their jobs, whether it's high school principals, medical professionals, or local law enforcement. I'd see perhaps one piece of legislation alone. Make local authorities liable for the deaths of anybody that is killed in a mass shooting because they didn't do their job. Then you'd see some action to prevent these kinds of killings.
To the Democratic line, it's Henry in Fort Gratiot, Michigan. Good morning.
Good morning, Sebastian. I don't know why they keep having you on here because you're so predictable, but
it's called America. It's called the First Amendment, my friend.
Oh, absolutely. Well, first of all, I'd like to commend you for your befriending and your work with the special ed community. Victor seems to be a very good project of yours.
He's actually blind. Victor, the last caller, is a blind man. So you're making fun of somebody who's handicapped, but that's typical for the left. Carry on.
Carry on. Probably in more ways than one.
Carry on with your insults of your fellow Americans. Go ahead, Henry.
At any rate, Victor, Sebastian, I'd like to first of all say that if you think about it, one of the most racist times in American history is if you go to any city and you stand at a freeway overpass and you look at the hours of 6 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock in the morning and from 2 o'clock to 6 o'clock in the afternoon, you will see the most racist time. The felon-in-chief has called Baltimore a rat-infested city. Well, all of our cities have problems, but it seems that the worst problem our cities have is we have white suburbanites coming into our cities, stealing our jobs, taking our tax money and our revenue, and then running back to the suburbs, spending their grift there, and then denigrating our people in the inner city. Do you support these tariffs? Do you support white farmers being ruined and put on welfare? Are you going to talk about the white farmers like you talk about people in the inner city being all on welfare? Help me out here.
Henry, let's get a response from Sebastian Gorka.
How do you respond to somebody who makes fun of somebody's handicap as he did with Victor? That's just despicable. It's un-American. The idea that we have a racist America right now, we had a racist America when Obama was commander-in-chief. He saw only his fellow Americans based upon their skin color and divided us. Right now, Henry couldn't care less. This is all Democrat talking points. We have the lowest unemployment for black Americans in generations. We have the lowest for Hispanics since record keeping began. Facts don't matter for the left. Facts are optional. All I know is one thing. I worked for Donald Trump. He doesn't see color. He's utterly colorblind. And the remarkable thing about Donald Trump is that he wants two things for all Americans. He wants you to be safe with your families, and he wants you to prosper, irrespective of your skin color, and remarkably, irrespective of whether you voted for him. He doesn't divide America. It's callers like you, Henry, who insult handicapped Americans. That's the problem.
On to another caller. It's Rhonda in Fitchburg, Massachusetts, Republican line for Mr. Gorka. Hello, Rhonda.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Very well.
I was a Democrat for over 40 years, and I could see that nothing was being done. So in 2016, I changed to a Republican, and I am so glad that I did. I think Donald Trump is doing a marvelous job, and I wish people would stop bad-mouthing him and, calling him names and put him down. Let him do his job. I mean, this is ridiculous. I'm so sick of the Democrats always throwing negative things out there about our president. Give him a chance.
Right.
He's proven over and over that he can get the job done.
Thanks for calling, Rhonda. Sebastian Gorka, what would be your best argument for the re-election of the president?
The real world. Rhonda's absolutely right. Welcome over, Rhonda, to the side of truth and sanity. Look, it is about attacking people because you have no policies. As I detail in my book, The War for America's Soul, Saul Alinsky wrote the handbook. It's called Rules for Radicals. It's not an accident that Hillary Clinton interned for Saul Alinsky, that she wrote her paper, her dissertation at Wellesley on Saul Alinsky. It's not an accident that the only photograph you can find of President Obama teaching constitutional law in a classroom is him in front of a chalkboard diagramming out Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals. For him, it was about the politics of personal destruction. They have no arguments. When you are saying your platform is to keep borders open and to provide taxpayer-funded medical insurance for illegal aliens, you have no platform. It's insanity. So they attack. In 2020, if things carry on the way they are carrying on right now, Paul, things are going to look very good for the president in just over 400 days.
All that being said, Washington Post in the opinion pages today. If you missed it, bring back our presidential primaries. The authors here are Mark Sanford, the former governor, Joe Walsh, the former House member, Bill Weld, the former governor. What they have in common is that they're running for president against Mr. Trump on the Republican side. So they point out that 4 states, Arizona, Kansas, Nevada, South Carolina, have canceled their nominating contests for 2020. So they're saying, well, what does that say? They say that the Trump loyalists in the 4 states have canceled the primaries and caucuses. They claim the president will win by a landslide, and that it is therefore a waste of money to invest in holding primaries or caucuses. But they write, since when do we use poll numbers as our basis for deciding whether to give voters a chance to choose their leaders, much less their presidents? Answer, we don't. They're saying,
We actually
bring back the primaries.
We've been doing it many, many times before. The Democrats have done it, as have Republicans. And the idea that this is the epitome of fake news. The Washington Post is publishing an article co-authored by Joe Walsh. Joe Walsh, who proudly was a birther and actually tweeted out that Barack Obama is a Muslim. These are the people that the Washington Post give a platform to. That's fake news.
Let's go to Doug. Doug is in Boston, Democratic caller. Hi, Doug. You're on with Sebastian Gorka.
Oh, hi. An underreported factoid is that the person at the United States Treasury Department who is in charge of directing the sanctions against Iran, Sigal Mandelker, happens to be an Israeli citizen. Maybe that's you don't find that problematic, but given the recent article in the New York Times by Ronan Bergman documenting how the Israelis try to drag the United States into conflict with Iran, I kind of think this is germane to the conversation. And I'd just like to remind you of a quote by the late Senator Fritz Hollins in May of 2004, in which he said, Iraq was invaded to secure Israel, and everybody knows it. That is a verbatim quote. Perhaps you could benefit us with your knowledge of that area. Thanks a lot, and have a nice day.
Happy to, Doug. This, again, is so disturbing. I don't know if this person exists or whether they have Israeli passport or not. But what Doug has just done is demonstrate the innate anti-Semitism of today's Democrat Party. What this caller just did is bring up the hoary anti-Semitic cliche of dual loyalties, just like Rashida Tlaib did. The fact that you have Alexander Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, proud anti-Semites in the Democrat Party, the face of the Democrat Party, supporters of the outrageous boycott, divestment, and sanction movement, which basically questions the legitimacy of the Israeli state, our closest ally in the Middle East, who actually question the loyalty of congressmen and women who happen to also be Jewish, is where we are today. If you want to see institutionalized racism, especially anti-Semitism, it's on the left, and Doug just gave us a beautiful example, or rather, a disgusting one.
Let's head back overseas. LA Times headline: the White House says Osama bin Laden's son, Hamza, was killed in a U.S. operation. What's the impact here?
I think in most cases now that it's 2019, we're a generation from the September the 11th attacks. It's less a question of the functional impact. Yes, Hamza had some role inside Al-Qaeda today, but it's the symbolic one. This is what I call phase 2 of the global war on terrorism. You have to attack the capacities of the organizations to do you harm, but most important of all, their will to fight. And once you kill bin Laden's son, who was seen as an heir apparent, you really do a death blow to their prestige as a terrorist organization.
I want to also show you the Washington Post magazine. Today they focus on Afghanistan. So they say that after 18 years of war, on the front cover of the magazine piece, America is finally on the brink of leaving Afghanistan. The sacrifices and costs have been staggering. Was it all worth it, says the piece? What would your answer be to that question?
The unfortunate history of the last 18 years is that we didn't have a constant strategic plan for Afghanistan. I visited Afghanistan. I visited 4 different provinces after 9/11. What we saw under both the Bush and Obama administrations is every 10, 12 months the plan would change. And it's very hard to win a game if the rules of the game are changing every year. We had a strategic malaise. Afghanistan only matters today, Paul, for the same reason it mattered in October of 2001. That piece of real estate in South Asia, Central Asia, must never ever again be used to execute mass casualty attacks in the US. That's the only reason. It's not to build hospitals or finish the ring road around Kabul that not even the Soviets could finish. The strategic intent is to make sure that they cannot harbor terrorists. That can be done without a large footprint. We need some strategic sanity, and this president is bringing it to Afghanistan.
The president took a lot of heat for negotiating or wanting to negotiating with the Taliban before they called it off. What's your take on that part of the issue?
The Taliban are bad guys. Let's be clear. They don't have the capacity of Al-Qaeda or ISIS. Their caliphate vision is very, very localized. But the president, as a pragmatist and as a patriot, knows that the Afghan government has never really functioned in a Westphalian sense. The idea that Kabul runs the country, it never did, except for maybe 7 years during the monarchy. If you want to bring some kind of stasis to Afghanistan, you have to have the Taliban at the table. You don't trust them. Remember what Reagan said: trust but verify. But they have to be part of some arrangement. But when they killed that US serviceman, that Romanian officer as well, he was absolutely correct in canceling those negotiations.
Just under 20 minutes left with Sebastian.
We will make America great again.